I got it in last minute.
All right. So this chapter we are starting on, and we're not going to get through this whole chapter. We might get halfway. We'll see. But this chapter we are starting on is all about exponents.
I have a question. Why do we have so many problems?
There's Earth.
They're not that bad. They're pretty easy. This first one's pretty easy.
Yeah.
All right. So we are working with exponents on this chapter. So this first piece here was just, let's see if you can calculate some exponents. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a reminder on some of them. A lot of you guys, or what'd you get for the answer of the first one? 9. Nope.
27.
12. I thought you had to do 3 times 27.
If that was the yeah.
9.
So remember, 3 to the third is 3 times 3 times 3, right? You gotta be careful. So a lot of people, like half of the people, did 3 squared and got 9, which is not right. It's 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27.
9.
Man, that's so
And there is a way you can plug it into Desmos. So I'll show you guys.
It's A with the 2 on top. 9.
No, not with 2.
Yeah, it
B. Say it with B. Alright, so if I'm going to do 3, and I want an exponent that's not 2, I got to click this AB button right here, and then type in 3 like that, and I get 27. So the next one, 2 to the 5th, some people put 10, which isn't right. This is 2 5 times, which is really going to be, and I'll plug it into Desmos.
Isn't it 10?
Nope.
It's
2
32.
to the 5th is 32.
Right. Oh yeah, I got that one.
No, you didn't. You got 10.
And then the last one, negative 4 in parentheses squared is positive 16. I think I saw 1 or 2 people put negative. You got to be careful. Whenever you have a negative, put it in parentheses like this.
I did that and I got. Wait,
No one asked for
and then do-
Yeah.
What? How did you do it?
Okay, that's a 2, it's 2
Yeah.
times 3 and
You did like to the 4 maybe instead of
I used that A2 one.
Wait, you said positive 16?
positive 16. Yeah.
we got a pipe in this room.
All right. So we are actually not going to be doing this a whole lot today. A little bit, but not a ton. So mostly what we're going to be doing today is simplifying exponents. So when we simplify, so to give like an example, if you have 2 over 4, if you have that fraction, that is really a 1/2, right? It reduces down. So we're going to do something similar. And what we're doing today is we are not going to get any decimals. You guys will get 0 decimals today, because you're going to be simplifying kind of like with fractions. 2 over 4 is really a decimal, and so is 1/2, but we're not going to do decimals. We're going to simplify. So to start with, I'm going to find out what is 3 to the 0. And any number to the 0 power will always be, what do you think? Somebody got a guess?
1.
Oh, it is 1.
Oh.
1.
3 to the 0
That is good.
equals 1.
That's a lie.
You're right. This 100,459 to the 0 equals 1. Negative 3.14159 to the 0 equals 1. I'll show you. Show you right now.
He chose later.
Alright, so let's see why this equals 1. Because this seems like it should be like a 0 or something, right?
Right.
Well, let's look at it. Okay, so I'm going to kind of work backwards. So I'm going to start with 2 to the 4, which is 16. If I plug that into Desmos, if I go 2 to the 4, I get 16. And I'm going to count down on my exponents. So 2 to the 4 is 16. 2 to the 3 is 8. 2 squared is 4. So do you guys kind of see a pattern so far?
Nah.
2 to the 4 is 16.
Oh.
And then I divide by 2 and get 8. Then I divide by 2 and get 4. Divide by 2 again, I get 2. Divide by 2 a last time, and I get 1. So if you work backwards, you can see why 2 to the 0 is 1. And this works for anything. Whenever you count backwards, it's always going to be like this.
Oh.
Oh, right.
Okay. Also, I know we haven't done this in a while, but make sure you're taking notes. Oh, you know what? I don't think we did a notebook check on our last stuff. We'll have to do that later.
Mr. Goki, no.
Yeah,
I was slacking.
do it.
I said slacking, not slap you.
Alright, so don't forget these are worth points. Make sure you're taking your notes. Get some easy points. Okay. So we're going to be looking at zero exponents a little bit.
Hey, quit interrupting.
Not bad. Alright, there you go. Finish it off. Hurry.
No, you better start keeping up. You shut up. Hang out with my knee and spank you, boy.
You taking notes, man?
Yeah, I've been taking notes. What the? It's a word. You can call me Luke right now. I think all people want. Oh, except my
Oh, actually, that hurt so bad. It was like.
And I'm not gonna do that. I knew I'll do it.
Alright? So, most of what we are doing today is going to be simplifying negative exponents. Let's go. Alright, most of what we're doing today is simplifying negative exponents. Now, when I have a negative exponent, it's kind of like my fraction example earlier, when I simplify. So a 2 over 4 simplifies down, right? Whenever you have a negative exponent, that simplifies. So, we are not going to answer with any decimals. Like I could put 3 to the negative 2 in decimals, right, and get a decimal. We're not doing that. We're going to simplify. So, to simplify, what I need to do is I need to make sure I have a fraction first. So I have 3 to the negative 2. And I'm going to make it a fraction by going 1 like this. Okay. And then I'm going to take everything that has a negative exponent and I'm going to switch the side of the fraction it's on. So this is 3 to the negative 2, right? I'm going to take this 3 to the negative 2, and since it's on top, I'm going to flip it down to the bottom. So I'm going to have a 1 on the bottom, and then when I flip this 1 down there, there's a times in between them. And when I flip 3 to the negative 2 to the bottom, the negative goes away. And I have 3 to the positive 2 like this. Whenever you flip the side of a fraction that a thing with a negative exponent is on, the negative goes away. So when I flip this to the bottom, the negative went away. And I have 1 times 3 squared on the bottom. And on this, if I have a fraction, I can't ever have an empty space on a fraction. So that means I need to fill it in with a 1.
Just like you can't have an empty stomach.
Okay, and then I have one last thing I can do. I can do 3 squared, right? What's 3 squared? 9. I have a 1 times 9, which is just going to be 9. When I simplify this, I get 1 over 9.
What?
Okay, let's do this next one. We're going to do this 5 to the negative 1 down here. So, this isn't a fraction, so I got to make it a fraction by going over 1 like that. And to simplify, I want to get rid of my negative exponent. So I'm going to take this 5, negative 1, and I'm going to flip it to the bottom. And when it gets flipped to the bottom, there's already a 1 there. And it's going to be flipped to the bottom, and the negative is going to go away. And it's just going to be 5 to the 1. And then on top of this fraction, I can't have an empty space, can't have a blank. Fill that in with 1. And then we can keep going through. 5 to the 1 I can do, because that's not a decimal. If I tried to do 5 to the negative 1 before, I'd get a weird decimal. I'll show you real quick. If I did 5 to the negative 1, I get a decimal. I don't want a decimal. But if I flip it around, the negative goes away, and I just have 5 to the 1, which is 5. So on this bottom part of my fraction, I have 1 over 1 times 5, which is 1 over 1 times 5 is 5. You taking notes? Or... Okay. Let's look at these two on the right now. I have 1 over 4 to the negative 2. This is already a fraction, right? Because it's already a fraction, I don't need to make it 1. I'm just going to flip what needs to change. So this 4 to the negative 2 it's on the bottom, I'm going to flip it to the top. And when I flip it to the top, the negative goes away. So I already had a 1 there. I'm going to go times. And instead of 4 negative 2, which is 4, 2, the negative goes away when you flip it. And I've got an empty space on the bottom of this fraction, which I got to fill in with a 1. And now I can go through and keep going a little bit, because 4 squared is 16, right? This is really a 1 times a 16 on top. We got 1 on the bottom there. And I can do 1 times 16, because that's just 16. Yep.
Wow.
So when I simplify, I get 16 over 1. Alright, last one like this. I have 1 over x to the negative 2. So I want to get rid of this negative exponent, so I'm going to flip this to the top. And when I flip it to the top, the negative goes away. So I already had a 1 there. And then I'm going to have an x squared. The bottom part of the fraction is empty, so I got to fill it in with a 1. Okay. Do we know what x squared is?
1.
Yeah.
No. We don't know what x squared is. But I can do 1 times x squared, right? That's just 1x squared. And I have over 1 on the bottom. And we're done. So before, I knew what 4 squared was, and that didn't have a decimal, so that's why I squared it. I don't know what x squared is, though. X isn't a number that I know. So I'm just going to leave it as an x squared. 1 times x squared is 1x squared.
I love it.
Not too bad. All right, your guys' turn. I want you to do this first one in the box right there. I want you to simplify 3 to the negative 4. On your own, as your first day in class problem. Then we'll go over it.
Hey.
Yes.
Also, you guys are getting a new seating chart tomorrow, just so you know.
God.
Again?
I've got it done. I meant to do it at the beginning of class, but
Again?
yeah, this isn't working as good as I hoped.
I'm probably not even gonna move, so I don't even care. Oh my god.
Hey, cool. Why don't we just do it right now?
Yeah,
No,
do it right
we
now,
already
Robert.
got started. So I'll give you about 30 seconds, then we're gonna go over it. Keith, do you need something, man?
Kid took my money.
That's rough. Better ask me about it after school.
I'm asking about it during lunch. Shut up, Richie. Bruh, there's so much work on here. Why do you give us so much work?
Five
I already
negative.
did it. It's the same answer as yours, dude.
Alright, let's go over this one. Let's go over it.
See? Same answer.
Alright, so we're gonna simplify 3 to the negative 4.
Weird.
Alright, so Kyle, what's the first thing I need to do? Yep. So I'm gonna go over 1, right? Alright. So I made it into the fraction. What do I have to do next? Robert.
Robert.
Oh, yeah, you got this one correct.
Yep, we gotta flip it to the bottom, right?
Oh, yeah, but wait, it turns into 1 over 81.
Yep. So I have 1 over 3 to the 4 on the bottom. I gotta fill in that top with a 1. 3 to the 4 we can plug into Desmos, and we don't get a decimal when you do that. Yep. And we get 1 over 81.
Oh,
Alright.
yeah. Can I just give the answer to that?
No.
No, we're gonna skip the next one. These guys did good in this
It's 1
first
over
one.
1,000.
Yeah, man. Alright, let's look at this next one. I have 3 to the negative 2 over x.
Shut up.
When you guys go through and simplify these, only things that have negative exponents switch around. So I have 3 to the negative 2, right? And it's already a fraction, I don't need to worry about that. But if I have 3 to the negative 2, the 3 has a negative exponent. What about this x down here? Does this x have anything? Any exponent on it? Negative or otherwise? No. Only things with negative exponents switch. So this 3 to the negative 2 is going to go to the bottom, and the x is going to stay on the bottom. It doesn't change at all. It doesn't have a negative exponent. Only things with negative exponents change. So I've got an x on the bottom. I have 3, 2 now, a 3 squared, and I got to fill it in for 1. And I can go through and simplify because 3 squared is 9, right? And 9 and an x is 9x, and I got a 1. So only things with negative exponents change. So you could have a list of 20 things, and if only one of them has a negative exponent, that's the only thing that changes.
Yeah.
Is it 84?
Yeah.
Trading the grid.
Okay.
It's all jamming over your head.
Alright?
Dude, Mr. Gogi.
Put it down.
I gotta go to the bathroom, bro.
Okay. That's fine.
I ate some Cheetos earlier.
They hurt when
It's
they
not,
come
they're
out.
not civil already.
Alright, so let's look at this next one. We are going to simplify 5 a to the third b to the negative 2. So only things with negative exponents are going to switch. So before I do any of that though, I'm going to make it a fraction, put over 1, right? Okay, I'm going to go through each piece, and I'm going to look at them all individually. So let's look at the 5. Does 5 have a negative exponent?
Down.
No. It doesn't have any exponent, and if there's not an exponent, it's automatically a 1, and 1 is positive, so I don't change it. I have an a to the third. That is not a negative 3, so it's going to stay up top. So this 5 stayed up top. A to the third is going to stay up top. But b to the negative 2, that has a negative exponent. It's going to flip to the bottom here. So I'm going to go 1 times b squared like this. And nothing else is going to switch. The only thing I can do is 1 times b squared, which is just a 1b squared. So I've got 5, a to the 3 stays on top. The b squared moves to the bottom. And that's it.
That's it?
Yep.
No way.
Yeah, waiting.
No, you can't say that's it. That's a lot.
And then I have to do the actual problem.
No, that's it. You're done.
5 times 5 times 5.
You must be playing.
No. That's a to the third, not 5 to
Let's
the
go
third.
to Google it.
Just to go. The gold glass.
Alright, so let's actually, we're going to skip these first 2 right here because we already did them basically. Let's look at part C. So on part C, and I'm going to write it over here where I have some more space. I got 4C3B. It's going to be C negative 3B. Alright, so I'm going to make this a fraction. And what's the only thing that has a negative exponent?
3.
Which is on the C, right? C is the only thing with your negative exponent. C is going to be the only thing that changes. C is going to flip to the bottom. 4 is going to stay up top. B is going to stay up top. So 4B stays on top. C flips to the bottom. And we go 1C3. Or 1 times C3, but 1 times C3 is just 1C3, right? Okay. Alright. You guys' turn. I want you to do D and E on your own as your last in-class problems.
Really, Loki?
Yep.
Really?
And you're not going to say
What?
So,
No, Yeah.
Go
So
back in
on
time.
your own, do part D, part E, and we'll go over them in a minute. And then that's it.
It does not pick me.
Wow. Stuck, Susan? All right, let's look. Okay. All right, so what has a negative exponent? Alright, so flip the A to the top. And when you flip it, the negative goes away.
oh, I know this. Oh.
flips, A3 got flipped to the top, right? So 2 stays on top. And you have an A. So the whole thing flips. So A minus negative 2. So when it flips,
Oh, no. I know you're trying to play.
the 2's not going to change, right? There's no negative.
Trying to help out.
So we got 2.
Push it.
A to negative 3 flips to the top. And when it flips, the negative goes away.
Help a cousin out.
2A3. And is there anything left on here? So I have
Oh.
to this is part B over here.
Oh, and also,
Go ahead and negative exponent.
say something.
Ooh, that's going to flip to the bottom, right? So so it'll be in 5 on the bottom, right? And did the m squared, does that have a negative? So it's going to stay on the bottom. Okay. And finally, we get a blank here. We get a put it on. That's it.
Why did you do the cake when you got
Really with the
All right, let's go over these. Let's go over them. All right, Dylan, start us off on part B.
Turn it into a fraction.
It's already a fraction.
Part of Z? What's E? D?
B.
B like blast. Kick
B
a
as in
B.
dog,
Oh.
or Dylan,
Okay.
or do your work.
Do your work.
All right, so it's already a fraction. So what do I got to do next?
You gotta do the thing with the A.
I got to do what thing?
You gotta circle it or something.
You gotta like circle the letters or something.
Okay. And then what?
And then put it up.
Simplify it.
By doing.
Fractions.
It's already a fraction. Yeah, you should probably pay attention, man. All right, we got to flip the side of the fraction it's on. So it's on the bottom. So it's going to flip to the top.
6, 8.
And when it flips to the top, the negative goes away. So I already have a 2 on the top, right? So it's going to stay on top because there's no negative exponent there, so it's just going to stay. And a to the 3 is going to go to the top now. And the negative goes away when we flip it. But, Dylan, I got a blank spot on the bottom of my fraction. What do I got to do with it?
1.
I got to put 1 there.
1.
So I have 2A3 over 1. Alright, for part E, let's see, part E. Allison, what do I got to do on part E?
You have to find the negative, which is negative 5, bring it down, so negative times and negative 5.
Yep. Oh,
But
but
then it
because,
turns into a positive,
yeah, there you
and
go.
then it's just M2 and 5.
Perfect. Perfect. Alright. So, on part E, we had to flip the n down to the bottom, and the negative goes away. And I've got that m squared there. It stays down there because there was no negative. It didn't have the negative exponent, so it just stays on the bottom. And makes this my final answer. 1 over m squared and 5. Although, if you did this, and you did it the other way around, you could also do 1 in 5 m2. So either one of these is fine. It doesn't matter which way you did it. So if you did n5 first and then m2, it doesn't. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. All right, that's it. So if you haven't yet, start on your exit ticket, and I'm gonna put your homework on Google Classroom right now.
We have homework, Mr. Loki,
Yep.
on the last week of school.